inside out agency centric view is, you list our capabilities, you talk about your costs, you add margin, and then you go, hey, this is the offering, right? And then the pricing logic is all about like, hey, this is what it costs us to deliver, and this is our markup. So that's very agency centric. Now we flip that to be client centric, outside in, and it's all about, hey, what is this person, our client, our stakeholder, what are they trying to accomplish? What's this engagement worth to them if they're able to accomplish and get the outcome that they want? What will we build to get them there, right? And then also the pricing comes from, the value of the outcome to the buyer, and not the cost of the inputs to us. So, basically, this is all about, this makes the case like the cost plus pricing that many agencies do of like, figuring out costs and then putting a markup on it, just it speaks to, the default motion when you genuinely don't know what the outcome is worth to a specific buyer. And I think having better conversations with prospects, going deeper, understanding the value, this will help you kind of figure out what they're willing to pay. And then, you can go back and devise a solution that allows you to deliver something to the client very profitably.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think having that value conversation with the client is so important. Beyond kind of thinking about your service offering, but just truly understanding what it is that, the client is hoping to achieve through the work that you do together.
Yep. All
right. Okay. So the next dimension is event marketing. So this is thinking, most agencies, they really know, that they should go to events where their clients exist, right? But let's think about it from the two lenses again. So from an agency perspective approach, from so inside out, you are looking and thinking about where should we show up to generate leads? Where should we show up to, get our logo seen by our clients? How can we fill our funnel, right? It's all about us being visible to buyers. It's all about us and, how do we benefit from it? But if you take it from a client perspective and outside in perspective, just really it's understanding, where do clients already go? Like what's important to them for their roles? If it's a professional community, other communities, like what are they part of already? And when they go to events, what are they trying to, get from it? Like, what are they trying to learn? Who are they trying to meet? And what's really valuable to them in that context of the room that they're in? So it's flipping the lens and just understanding, what the client is doing at an event. So yeah. So if you kind of take an example, right, of a conference, and from a client's perspective, like most clients aren't there to find an agency, right? Like, for an agency perspective, you might be there to find prospective clients, pitch them, etc. But then they're really there to grow their career. They're trying to learn from peers, get inspiration, and see how other, similar businesses are solving similar problems from them. So I think it's really, understanding the actual reason why people go to industry events, and just thinking about how do you speak to that audience in that room.
Yeah, so this just popped in mind because you and I were recently in Miami for a conference for one of our agencies, right? It was like a water treatment conference, and just thinking about it was like three different kind of vendors, right? Like service providers, our agency being one of them, just kind of each giving kind of a talk, a very brief 10-minute presentation. And, I think, Tucker, the founder of the agency that we acquired, gave this presentation, and it was like heads and shoulders better than the other presentations because it very much reflected this, which was like, he wasn't trying to sell on, kind of capability services or what the agency did. None of that. It was more like, look, how this AI exists and it's this big scary thing, but it can be tamed. And he made it very entertaining about how do you kind of tame the AI dragon. And then, it was all very actionable, very digestible, and, very entertaining bits of, useful content for the audience to feel better about, using AI to empower them in the day to day, and kind of how they could incorporate it into their marketing. And like I thought it was great. Like no hard sells at all, and like you kind of come away from that thinking, oh man, I got to talk to this guy. He's super helpful, and like it just I think that's a great example of how an agency can really show up at these events.
Yeah, and his lens was thinking about, what is the outcome? Like, how can AI help your business? How do you double your business, double your leads using AI versus coming from a, hey, here are all the, things that we do with it's less about telling them what the agency does and more like the outcome of what they can achieve from using, AI broadly.
Yeah, so good. Okay, and so that was event marketing, and then if we kind of go take this to the content side, so content marketing. So the agency centric approach here is just like all about our content calendar. What do we want to publish? What makes us look smart? What's the trend that we should weigh in? Have a hot take on. What will get us the engagement on LinkedIn, right? And this is the lens that maybe it's all about how does this make us look good, right? And
Yeah.
so flipping that, the client centric lens here would be diving more deeply into like what is our client actually typing into search to kind of learn more about what are the questions they might be embarrassed to ask their own team, and would appreciate kind of showing up on their feed, and what are some things that they might actually pay for if it was a course. And so like you talked about before, like what are the things that's going to help them just become more capable, better, develop more professionally. And so yeah, I think like once you kind of have that flip, it just opens the aperture on like what you should think about writing.
Yeah, I think it's funny because most agencies, if you think about what they're writing, it's it could be like over technical or over jargony, or it's like really helps. The agency feels like smart when they're putting out all this jargon, but then for the end, they're not necessarily thinking about whether the customer, the end buyer, actually finds it useful and actually understands how it applies to them. So it's really balancing and understanding from the reader's perspective. Could you help them in whatever it is that you're trying to communicate?